Hello everyone, this is LW Gaming and welcome to a brand new, well not necessarily brand new, but the ones I already covered before, but this is for global version. This one featuring the two new characters that'll be coming to global soon, Abishai versus Lukhmaan or Abishai. I think it's called Abishai just for the simplification, and then Lukhmaan is another one, and these two are from Langrisser and WonderSwan game. And yep, we'll be getting more of the representative of the WonderSwan in the upcoming updates, of course. And matter of fact, we're getting two more after this one as well. But of course, they're not going to be releasing on the back-to-back kind of monthly updates. So just keep that in mind because we'll be seeing more of these characters from WonderSwan at some point in the future, of course. So let's get right into what these characters are. So first up, let's talk about the first character named Abishai, and this is what he's about. So I think I already explained what he does already. So yep, let's get right into what he's about. So the factions he's part of are your Less Legends, Dark Reincarnation, and Mythical Realm. Let me pause this really quick just to double check. Okay, I am back, and the factions that I've explained are correct. I just gotta double check to make sure I said it right. Otherwise, this could become something like misleading. I don't want that. And the classes he has are Infantry and Demon. So yeah, if you want to build him pretty well, I would say go for Infantry. But if you want his crazy stats, go Demon. But beware of Holy units if you're thinking about using him for PvP. But fortunately for you, Gaze, if you have Gaze, you can actually completely mitigate that by, of course, swapping classes with another unit, which could negate the demon issue. You know, that's the one thing that's actually pretty nice about being part of demon. You get higher stats, and also if you have Gaze paired up, you don't have to worry about him getting hurt by holy units, or I should say, Dragon Slayer if he was a holy, but. I think you can choose him in any other class you want with Gaze if you have him with her. Now let's talk about the talent. So it's called Ravager Core, and by the way, all the info that you see here are already available in my own personal server, which is Langrisser Langwiki, which is my own Discord server. If you haven't joined already, please I'll advise you to join it if you haven't. Because there are actually a lot of stuff in here that might be worth looking at when it comes to English translation. But of course, I mean you can already see that in other places like Banner News, Langrisser Wiki. But by the way, Langrisser Wiki, I was not the one running that. It's someone else. So don't get those two names confused. Like Langwiki and Langrisser Wiki are similar, but they're not the same. And when using active skills, they do not enter cooldown, kind of like Arkenfell style. Instead, gain a stack of overheat equal to the skill's cooldown turns. So, for example, if you use a skill that's like a 2-turn cooldown, you get 2 stacks of overheat. And then if you use 4-turn cooldown, you get 4 of those stacks as well. So just keep that in mind when you're getting overheat, because overheat is kind of a buff and as well as a debuff. It's like a double-edged sword in certain aspects, which I'm going to talk about. So the buff part of that overheat is that it increases its damage by 3 to 6% depending on the star level, and this is per stack, by the way. If you have up to 5, this is the maximum amount you can get up to. It will be 15 to 30% maximum, which is absolutely nuts if you can take advantage of this. And this effect cannot be immunized or dispelled in any way because this is a unique buff, and it could be a debuff as well because. Which I'll tell you why. At the end of the turn, if no skill was used, you will lose 1 stack of overheat, which I guess that makes sense because you don't do anything, you're kind of cooling down a bit. And upon reaching 5 stacks of overheat, he'll gain overload, which is the state that he can become for 1 turn. And this will ignore 15% of enemy's defense. And while an overload is active, his active skill behavior will behave normally, which means that they will enter cooldown after use. So yeah, when that happens, just be prepared for the time when he won't be able to use skills, which is his downtime. And while overload, yeah, I already said that one. So this can be like when overload ends, He'll lose 5 stacks of overheat, which means all of them that he has as overheat. Overload ignores immunity and cannot be dispelled. So once it's removed, like overload is removed, he's going to return back to his initial state, which will allow him to use skills without having the skills entering cooldown. So yeah, his is interesting. He's like Arcanfell, but it's like somewhat a little downgrade because you won't be able to get this cooldown removed after you like use a skill while you're doing the overload action. So yeah, when that happens, just watch out when you're using the skill while being in overload mode. You honestly do not want that to happen. Like you need to attack at like most of the time, but without your skills active, you're pretty much like a sitting duck. And also, I believe he does not do guard ignore, even though he kind of looks like an assassin type of character. He's not. He doesn't do that. So yeah, a tank don't have to worry about their squishy units being destroyed by him, which is unlikely. So let's talk about what skills he comes with, mostly unique ones. So he has a 1C skill called Burst Drive, which is a 2-turn cooldown, and it's a self-cast, and it's a single target. And the passive on this one, at the end of the action, if an active skill was used and Abishai does not have overload, he can move 2 more blocks and can attack again. So yeah, basically, as long as he does not with an overload while using active skills, he's gonna be able to act again somewhat, which makes him dangerous. And the active skill is that after you use to increase attack and int by 20% for 2 turns, gains a shield which will immune to all debuffs and can block damage equal to 25% of max HP. If used while under overload state, all other skill cooldowns are reduced by 1 turn. Abishai restores 100% HP. Buff durations will not decrease at the end of action, and the shield is upgraded to Overload Shield. And this will basically does the same thing as normal shield would do, but it can block damage equal to 50% of max HP, and shield and overload shield cannot be dispelled. So this is like a self-shielding buff for himself, and also combined with a passive skill this one comes with. This is also essentially an act again, since it is an active skill. And now let's talk about the 2C skill, Energy Torrent, which is his unique skill, 2C skill of course. 3-turn cooldown, 3 blocks range, and it's a 3-line AoE. And this will attack all enemies in 3 straight lines, 3 blocks long, dealing 0.36 area damage, or known as AoE damage, and disables accessory skills to all affected enemies for 2 turns, which can't be dispelled. When a target is a non-player hero, this effect is replaced with damage taken increased by 20% for 2 turns, which can't be dispelled. When in overload state, applies a special terrain effect, which is called Energy Trap, for 2 turns to the blocks that he hit. When an enemy unit moves onto those terrain effects, it will take fixed damage equal to 1 times of his attack at the end of the action. So it's like a Thunder Zone that Bright Summoner would do, but this is attack based, by the way, not int based, which is essentially the same thing but different aspects. And finally, his 3C skill called Life Drain. It may be called something else in global, by the way. It's a 4-turn cooldown, 1 block, and it's a single target attack. And the passive is that for each stack of overheat, damage taken is reduced by 6%, up to a max of 30%. So basically, it capitalizes his talent even more. So not only allows him to deal more damage, it also allows him to take less damage for himself during the process, which is pretty good. And this one looks like it's using a 6-star status instead of the 3 stars, which is nice. I mean, skills doesn't really scale on stars, so it's a neat thing. And the physical part of this is that this attacks 1 enemy, dealing 1.8 times damage for each stack of overheat. It dispels 1 buff from the target when overload is active. This skill also increases his crit by 100%. Oh, yikes. After combat, restores 30% of the damage dealt as HP. So this is like a sun slash kind of thing, but yeah, a lot dangerous. If the target is eliminated with this, overload is removed after combat, and this will have a trigger cooldown. Overload can be removed again after 5 turns. So yeah, for some balancing purposes. So like if you're in the overload status while doing this, and if you manage to kill the enemy with it, you're gonna lose overload, and you will be able to use your skills again for for a decent amount of times, but after which overload cannot be removed after that 5 turns on the trigger cooldown. So just keep that in mind if you're using this constantly. So what do I think about the enchantment for him? So I kind of feeling he's great for Breeze or Full Moon or even Clock even, but I don't think Clock should be the one that you should use, but Full Moon for like potential like high damage and also high defensive power. But anyways, it's totally up to your preference. If you want him to reach pretty well, Breeze is a no-brainer. Now next up, let's talk about the bonds that he'll be needing. So for himself, he needs Tiana for defensive bond. For his attack bond, he needs to be in his demon class. As for other characters for bonds, Sharik needs him for defensive bond. So yep, that will be in the future. Just keep that in mind. So if you plan to build Sharik in the future, get Abishai, because he's gonna be a key unit to have for his defense bond. And for the uses that Abishai may have is that for PvE he is great. He's a great addition. I mean, PvE doesn't really need much of like a specific hero per se. I mean, he is a nice addition to your team, as long as he's not within the overload state. That's like when he can dish out cooldowns as much as he wants. And for PvP settings, he is good, but however not deadly, since he does not guard ignore, as far as I know. Let me double check to see if he does guard ignore. Okay, I am back, and I just checked his common skills. So he does have a skill called unflinching, or known as dominance. I don't know how to call that one, but that's the skill that most of the common units that have, like Landius, for example, basically it prevents a fatal damage. So it's like essentially a personal revive, but only 20% HP restored, which is not much. But with the inclusion for SP Landius, his revive kind of makes it pretty like you don't need that. But if you want like double revives, then yeah, that could work too. But it's not recommended, because you're basically wasting that one skill slot. So yeah, as far as how Abishai works, he is okay to have, but he does not guard ignore. I did check before, and yep, I can confirm that again. There's no guard ignore for this guy, so if you really care about guard ignore, this is not it. But you can actually still summon for him for Sharik's defense bond in the future. And do I think this is worth it? I would say yes. He is somewhat worth to get, because he will bring some value to the team, and also like he will unlock the defense bond for Sharik in the future. And however, if you don't have the resources to summon for whatever reason, you can just save your resources instead, since he is not limited like most of the characters so far. I mean, not like most characters. I mean, the characters that won't come back for a while, like such as Enya, Serena, I believe like Watham, Apo, yeah, all those characters that were listed on there, like AO, yeah, any of these characters, and even LRs, like these ones don't come back that often. So Abishai is not one of those characters, so you don't have to worry about missing out, because they're not going anywhere. It would just be harder for you to summon for them. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the next character named Lukhmaan. I don't know why my voice cracked there just now. That's weird. Lukhmaan is another character from WonderSwan that's also going to get debuted in this update. So his factions, he's part of Legion of Glory, Yles Legends, and Strategic Masters. I mean, another Yles Legends unit, why not, right? And then the classes he has are Infantry and Lancer. And it's called Vision of the Balance. And this one will increase his attack and defense by 10 to 20% depending on star level, with Unity and Command for each other unity ally within 3 blocks around a unity ally. Attack and int plus 10%, and this will increase up to 20% since you can only have 3 unity at a time. 3 allies with unity, I mean. And and also this one ignores immunity and cannot be dispelled whatsoever. At the start of each turn, unity is applied to the nearby ally by random until there are 3 allies with unity on the field. At the end of the turn, you can choose a unity ally to teleport them to the vicinity of another unity ally within a 7 block range. And the trigger cooldown is that this can be triggered again after 2 turns, and the command's attribute effect does not stack with other command skills. So you might be thinking, what is unity? Well, unity, think of this like Andreli's Oath, but with 3 of them on the field. Yeah, that's that kind of stuff. So when they're like together within 3 blocks of each other, they're gonna have their attack and int stats increased by 10% for each. So yes, you can have it up to 20% if the unity ally has 2 other unities approximately nearby, and which will be important later for his 3C, by the way. So let's talk about his unique skills. So the first one is the 2C skill called Rift Break, and it's a 2-turn cooldown, 2 blocks, and it's a single target. And this will attack as one enemy, dealing 1.5 times damage before entering combat. Inflicts the enemy with defense minus 25% for 2 turns. After combat, grants ally units with unity an additional 2 mobility points for 2 turns, which is a 2 mobility increase. For 2 turns, when having melee soldiers, they will also attack. And this skill is not affected by melee damage penalty, which pretty standard for a melee skill that can be ranged. And then the next skill we're going to talk about is his 1C called Energy Armor. It's a 4-turn cooldown, and it's a self-cast, and it's a single target. Passive is that after actively attacking and entering combat, restores 20% of damage dealt to allies with unity as HP. And if the enemy is defeated in combat, reduces the cooldown of all their damage skills by 2 turns. So yeah, basically it's like a sun slash, but for your allies. Like they will be able to heal as long as these allies have unity on them. And also, if you're able to kill someone with this, or with any skills in anything in general, their cooldown is also going to get reduced by 2 turns. Only the damage skills. And now let's talk about the active skill of this skill called Energy Armor. When activated, Lukhmaan gains immunity and attack and int by 20% for 2 turns. After use, he can move an additional 3 blocks and attack again. So it's essentially a self-activate skill. And after using this skill, the buff duration on Lukhmaan will not decrease. Pretty standard nowadays. And finally, we have the 3C skill called Flash Blade. And you may be thinking, wait, isn't this just the beef up version of Flash skill? Well, you are wrong, because this is not really that. Because this is essentially a guard ignore skill plus a sword soul, kind of like that, under a certain condition, of course. But let's digest what this skill does. So, Flash Blade is a 5-turn cooldown, 1 block, and it's a single target. It's the same statistics as the sword soul, but this is it has more into it. So let's see what this is. So the command on this one is that ally units with unity will not consume ability points when moving through other allies with unity. So as long as they're like traveling to each other or whatever, these characters aren't gonna get slowed down or whatever because of the negating mobility consumptions, which is pretty awesome. And the passive skill on this one here is that for each ally with unity within 3 blocks, damage dealt is increased by 10, and this can be increased up to the max of 30%. So if you have 3 unity allies within Lukhmaan, you'll be able to do the full potential damage on there. And now let's talk about the physical damage on this skill. This will deal 1.8 times damage to one enemy, and dispels 5 of their buffs before combat. So it's like Sword Soul style. If there are other allies with unity within 3 blocks, this attack will ignore guard. if the enemy is successfully eliminated, all enemies damage dealing skills within 2 blocks radius of the target will have their skill increase on the cooldown by 2 turns. So yeah, that's pretty nasty. So not only they were able to Lukhmaan is basically Androli, but a lot dangerous because now he had to worry about 3 Unity allies near his side. So as long as if there's one of them near his proximity, he's going to be able to guard ignore, which makes it very dangerous already. And also, secondly, if Lukhmaan's able to kill that unit while doing so, anybody that's within that target range, of 2 blocks per se, as an example, their damage skills will get increased on their cooldown by 2, which makes them somewhat ineffective for follow-ups, or I should say counterattack, that is. So yeah, when that happens, yeah, Lukhmaan is really going in for business. So if you ever see Lukhmaan, watch out, because not only he will do guard ignore, he also increases your damage skill cooldown by 2 turns, which is pretty dirty. Now let's talk about what bonds he needs for his own and for others. So for himself, he needs Zion for his defense bond, which makes sense because Zion and Lukhmaan, they're friends, I believe. I think Lukhmaan is the instructor while Zion is the student for him, which makes sense. And then for his attack bond, he needs his infantry class upgraded. His final class, in fact. Okay, let's move on. What uses he could be for himself. So for Lukhmaan, for PvE, he is a great unit. All the PvE choices when it comes to characters, there's no ups and downs usually for PvE. So he is great for the Unity aspects he brings to the field. As for PvP, he is a great addition in this battle setting, and can be super effective like Androli style guard ignore, but with Unity allies within 3 blocks, as well as increasing their damage skill cooldown by 2 turns after killing. So yeah, if you ever see Lukhmaan out there, either as an infantry or lancer, just watch out for him. Especially if he's too close to with a Unity ally, that's where things it's gonna get really bad. For you if you're fighting against him as your opponent. But of course, there are ways you can deal with him by, of course, pushing him back with Ilya. But most of the time, you probably don't use her that often. But anyways, if you're for some reason able to get a hold of Ilya, you don't have to worry much about Lukhmaan, because you can just simply push him away and then he'll have to walk back again. But if he has mobility increase of with a breeze effect or anything like wings, I don't think he can carry wings, but maybe he does. But if that's the case, then yeah, beware of his mobility. And keep in mind, he can only guard ignore with his 3Cs. So it's kind of like Androli scenario. So think of him like Androli, but with the short leg aspects. So he's not going to be that dangerous, but just beware of where he's positioned with his Unity. And is he worth polling for? I would say yes, he is worth polling for if you really want to bring another guard ignore option to your team. But of course, you don't need Abishai for his bonds, because he's not really necessary for him. So you won't get FOMO if you only just summon one of them. So that's a huge plus for those who really in the verge of if I don't summon both, I'm gonna miss out. No, this banner is pretty relaxed on this one. So even though if you miss one of them, it's not the end of the world. Okay, next up, let's talk about the SP soldiers. So Dark Centurion. The Dark Centurion is one of the 3 SPs that's gonna get added as a soldier lineup. So what the soldier does is that before being attacked and entering combat, deals fixed damage equal to 2.5 times of the hero's defense to the enemy. During combat, when the unit's HP percentage is higher than the enemy's. Soldiers' defense and magic defense increased by 20%. And yeah, so this is actually a nice upgrade for Dark Centurion, because Dark Centurion is kind of underwhelming in the current meta, but with this SP class, I could see some uses for this one. And there are 5 heroes that will be able to take advantage of this upgrade, which are Freya, which makes sense because she does capitalizes fixed damage. Polyol is also a great thing to have. Alpha, yes, that is also a nice addition. Landius, I mean, if you run him as SP, I don't know if you want to run this soldier, but if you want to run it, yeah, powers to you, because this is also an excellent addition for him. And finally, we have, I think this person is Aryan Rod from Trails of Cold Steel 3 collab. Yeah, funny enough, we never have a collab rerun for time being, and we got one for Aryan Rod for this one here, which is kind of interesting. I hope in the future they will bring back certain collabs, because right now they're not doing that right now, which is pretty sad. I mean, licensing, you know. Okay, moving on. Let's look at the next SP soldier. This one is Cyborg Vessel, which is the infantry soldier. And in his SP form is that when performing an active attack, if the soldier can attack, like the soldiers can attack with the hero, I mean, and not if, not that. The soldiers can attack with the hero, with the damage increased by 30%. During combat, the unit ignores melee damage penalty, and soldiers attack and defense by 15%. Yeah, this soldier is pretty helpful for range units like Lena, for example. So the 5 heroes that can use this soldier in SP form are Ironblood Commander, or known as IBC, Clotaire, Kirikaze, Lostum, and finally Lena. And yep, Lena is a nice addition as part of the Cyborg Vessel addition here. So we'll be seeing how interesting she will be, because with this soldier, this will allow her to be a mage class without like enemies being able to penalize her damage by just being too close, because this soldier prevents that from happening. And last but not least, we got Exorcist, which is the final SP soldier addition for this update. And this one increases their soldiers' defense by 30%. When fighting against demons, attack is increased by 30%. When performing an active attack, if the enemy's defense is greater than or equal to their magic defense, the damage dealt in this battle is considered as magic damage. So this is pretty flexible in many ways. So, like for example, if you're fighting against enemies that has higher defense than magic defense, they're gonna change their damage dealt type from like just physical into a magical attack, which is super useful in many scenarios. So basically, you're always gonna do true damage, no matter what. Regardless of like whether which one's higher. Like if their defense is higher, they'll become magical units. But if their magic defense is higher, they'll stay as a physical unit. So depending on whichever is higher, they'll just do the opposite, which will be super neat. Now let's move on to the next part of this, which is the banners. What we're gonna expect here. So yeah, I apologize if the video is getting longer. Is because there are a lot of stuff we need to digest here. So the first week we'll be expecting, like starting on the 4th of September, we'll be seeing the debut of Abishai Lukhmaan, which is expected, and all the way until the first day of October. And then on the week number 2, which is September 11, well, not referencing the terrorist attack, of course, not like that. This one features a return of Dragon Slayer. Ooh, yikes! Dragon Slayer really gives me the creeps, like honestly. And then alongside that, there's gonna be Nonoran and Broken Wing Bird. And also, there's gonna be Divine Wish banner featuring all the non-limited heroes up to Rendell and Broken Wing Bird update. And there's also going to be equipment banners as well. On week 3, which is like on September 18th, 2025, all the way to the end of the major update, this will feature a Radar banner featuring Seraphina and Zion, and then a Destiny banner featuring Alia, Rosenseal, and Varelia. And then alongside that, there's going to be a Wish Banner for Langrisser 1 to 5 heroes, as well as the Langrisser Mobile Arc 1 and 2 heroes. And then on the final week, we have the, which is on the 25th of September, and it ends on the 8th of October. This will be featuring 2 Destiny banners. One of them will be featuring Ashimar, a Dengelmo, Mariandel, and the other one will be Elwyn, Leon, and Bernhardt. And also there's a Wish banner featuring Tensei heroes. And keep in mind, even though these are listed here, there could be changes for global version, so just watch out for that. As for what events / changes to expect here, so anyways, there's actually a full-on rundown of like what kind of events are we going to expect here. So Eternal Forge is expected because this is the update when they brought 4 new equipments in the game, and these ones are, I'd say, is either a hit or miss depending on which one you want to get. And then we'll be seeing Blood Moon Eden happening here as well, starting on week 2. Triple Gate of Fate will also be in this update on week 2 as well. And then Floating Realm event is also going to be here on week 2. And then Anarchy Gyms will be open starting on week 2. And then the laws will be open on week 3 for all of them. And then as for quality of life changes, these were already brought forward already. So that means we got like all of these in the game already. So let me list what each of them are. So Arena Testing Ground we already saw to test your teams. That's already existed in the game. Crafting weapons and salads are now just using multi-fruit and multi-ore, which is already in the game. And then Guild War Sweeps no longer restricts your heroes by levels, which is already in the game again. Which means that you can now send any heroes you want, regardless of levels, but you won't get much points. Just keep that in mind. Next up, we got New Confession and Exclusive. So we got a new exclusive for Nonorin. And this will increase her HP by 10%. At the end of the turn, if an active skill was used during the current turn, apply a special terrain effect, High Tide, to all blocks within a 1 block radius for 2 turns. When in water terrain or having a shield, Nonorin will take 10% less damage. If both conditions are met, damage taken is reduced by 20%. So it's like a stacking kind of mechanic in there. So if you're in either water terrain or if you yourself having a shield, you'll take 10% less damage. But if both of them are met, it's going to double the effect of 20%. And the new confession for this update is Randall. Yep, we'll be seeing how many times have we brought Randall to the battlefield. And ever since her debut, Randall is becoming more prominent for PvP than AO. But I mean, they both can be slotted together. But nowadays in the current meta, I only see Randall most of the time over AO. Which I kind of think that AO time might actually be like coming close to an end, but we'll have to see because some people still use her as a backup option, but we'll have to see what's going to happen next because AO is kind of in a tough spot right now because she's not like a top priority as before, ever since Randall is in the game now. Next up, we got new casting skills for like 2 new ones actually. One of them featuring Shibaraku, or I should say the guy from Wataru collab. Attack is increased by 5%. After using a skill to kill an enemy, Shibaraku gains Battle Scar, which is his talent buff effect, I would say. Which is pretty nuts to have, but I mean he's an SR, so I don't expect him to do much outside of that. And the next character we're going to talk about is Apotheosis, or known as Apo for short. He's getting casting in this update, which is going to be a game changer for him. When triggering revive effects from the chaos state, and this will apply Nightmare to the source of damage, and Nightmare is basically lose control debuff on them. So when that happens, they are not going to be able to control themselves in PvP. I kind of think the Nightmare will be replaced with something else for PvE content though. So don't get your hopes up because this doesn't do lose control on PvE. At the end of the turn, for every 2 types of stat bonuses from talent, the cooldown of the end is 9 and the judgment of the abyss is reduced by 1 turn, which is super helpful for him to be able to get back to his transformation faster by 1 turn. So overall, which one do I think is better for an upgrade? No, definitely Apo because he is kind of in a weird position right now because Watham kind of came back into the meta with his casting, and now we'll be seeing Apo doing the same for himself. Kind of funny if you think about it, like having Watham come back to the meta even though he is older, and Apo comes back with his casting, which is going to be pretty nuts already. And do I think Watham's going to get dethroned again? I honestly don't think so because Watham is kind of stable right now when it comes to his power. But we'll see. And before we go and let you guys go, there's something I want to talk about here. So the next update on October will be featuring Elvis and Rhea, and these are going to be nice to have on your team for PvP. And Elvis is the one you probably need to watch out for because he does something that's, could be scary, but of course only to against inexperienced players. But by the time when you're watching this, you probably know what you're up to. But anyways, oh, and also there's something I need to worth mention here. So we're kind of getting close to a next collab, or I should say the new collab that we'll be getting after these two, Elvis and Rhea, on here. And you might be thinking, well, what collab are we expecting next? Well, the next collab is going to be featuring the characters from Fairy Tail anime series. And to those of you who are familiar with Fairy Tail, you're definitely gonna like this, and also you'll be hooked on the hype train here. So Natsu, Lucy, and Urza will make their debut, but there will be some sad cases like, I know some people like Ray as part of the collaboration, but I don't know what Zilong is thinking now because I remember back in the day when they do Lodos 4, they were able to incorporate 4 characters from that collaboration, but now they're just doing the solid 3, which is a missed opportunity. But who knows? They may go back to that format there, but as of right now, it looks like they're only going with 3 this time. So yep, so sorry, Gray fans. Although Gray is a nice character, but the thing is, they prefer the main guy like Natsu, for example. Lucy and Ursa are also important for the series, so if they want to drop one, they had to choose Gray out, which is really unfortunate. So anyways, that's it for this video. Hope y'all find this video helpful and informative, and I apologize for a long video. I'll timestamp these as usual so that you can skip to whichever part you want to see. So see y'all next time.